And we're coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app, good Thursday morning. Boomer will be back tomorrow for a feel-good Friday. Still out in Vegas. He's flying back today after the Super Bowl's greatest commercials shoot. And then we'll be heading out to Vegas ourselves on Sunday. It means that Jerry is back in for Boomer. Good morning, Jerry. How are you?
Good morning, Greg. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. What is the status of Jerry Recco right now after an 8:30 tip and a rough loss for the Scarlet Knights last night at the rack? How are we feeling this morning?
I feel fantastic. Not a great night. Rough night for the Scarlet Knights, but I feel fine. I'm good to go.
Where are we right now with the sleep? How did you sleep last night? How many hours?
4.
You got 4 in.
A little less, but yeah, I'll say we'll round it up to 4.
All right, you'll take that.
Yeah, no, we're okay. Then you know what? The game went relatively quickly, low scoring, but for the most part, all good. Got out of there about 11:15 or so, 11:20. Yeah, little. And it was funny that the theme of. So there was one fan that goes, this is behind us. He goes, why exactly? They do it for TV, obviously, which is why the 8:30 start. How come the Purdue Northwestern game? 2 schools that are an hour behind us, right? Because they're right. Yeah, they're 1 hour behind us. Why did they get a game at 5:30 and we had to play it not at 8:30, 8:42? It's a good point. Yeah, it is stupid.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but whatever. It is what it is, and we move on.
11:15. I was in my 3rd REM cycle at that point.
11:15. I'll come to the bathroom twice.
I slept great last night, man. It was awesome. It was essentially an open night. For me, I told you I wasn't going to get into this Kevin Durant return. Didn't care about him when he was here. Certainly don't care about him now when he's on the Suns.
Yeah.
So screw that. Went to bed early. I feel phenomenal. Now, yesterday was a very interesting day. We were talking about Golden Knights games with Peter Schwartz, and my old Italian teacher called up from Belport Middle School. Today is going to be potentially even more interesting.
I'm looking forward to this.
Because 2 things.
Ooh, 2.
2 things. One, we and I guess several other radio stations, but we will be debuting Billy Joel's new song.
Oh,
at least
today.
A portion of it, yes.
Oh, very cool.
A portion of it at 7 a.m., so 1 hour from now. New music from Billy Joel. I mean, this is the first time he's put out a new song since that River of Dreams thing, right?
Is that the 90s?
Yeah, I think so.
92-ish?
Right around there.
95, yeah. Okay.
Somewhere in there. So when I probably had Vito Caparuso as an Italian teacher was when that song came out.
That's right.
So first time it's was the Turn the Lights Back On or something? What is the name of it? Turn the lights are on. Turn the lights back on. That's what it is. Turn the lights back on. A new song. So we'll play a portion of that at 7 o'clock. And then 8 o'clock, the much controversial around these parts, apparently, Oz the Mentalist will come in and try to blow our minds. And as I said yesterday, if you don't know Oz, you got to look him up on social media. If you saw Hard Knocks with the Jets, crazy stuff. He's done stuff all over the last number of years that has really been impressive. But he is a guy that's going to come in and see, as I mentioned yesterday, 4 of the most cynical people on earth. The cynicism level between the 4 of us is off the charts. You cannot match it with any other 4 people in the world. And I feel confident in that, in the fact that we grew up in the tri-state area. We are radio guys. I mean, that's the cynicism right there. It's just we commute.
Yes.
I mean, it's so if he can convince us that he does something special, he can convince just about anybody. So that'll happen at 8 a.m. this morning.
And coming in the middle of a stretch of weather that has been horrific around here.
Oh yeah,
we haven't seen the sun in 10 days.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. And then we go out to Vegas and don't see the sun for 9 days. So that's going to be great.
No, I'm confident we will for a couple of those.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, I am for a couple of those.
Just a couple of days?
The entire week? Not so much, but a couple of days we'll get it.
And we made it through January.
Yeah, I know. February 1st. Amazing, isn't it?
One of the 3 death months, I call them. January, February, March. We have made it through one of them.
Death month?
The death months. Yes, because if you make it through that, you have survived the winter.
This one, January's rough. This one, to me, is just as bad. And the extent, I think this is a leap year, I believe, right?
It
so
is,
we have the February 29th.
Dumbest thing ever. Like, make June 31st a leap year. Add another day in June, not another day in February. Nobody wants another day in February.
I do like that idea. But
not around here, at least.
This, to me, is the month. You get through February, now we're good. Because even March can be awful, but at least there's hope that spring is right there.
Yeah. February, by far,
rough.
if you're drafting the worst months, February is at the top.
Yep.
It's 100% number one. And then January, March is tough too. January is probably number two.
Yes, but March can give you hope.
It can.
That's the difference.
You might see a red-breasted robin, maybe a daffodil towards the end of the month. Something. Give us some hope. But yes, it is February, and we did go through this Athletic article yesterday with the Jets, and both of us saw some stuff in there but weren't overly blown away. I know BT after us said it was like the worst referendum on a New York head coach in a very long time with the stuff that was in there with Rob Saleh, with Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic. And I don't even think that the stuff that was in the article was as bad as what happened after this dropped, which is that Joe Douglas's top lieutenant, the guy who has been with him for so long that he brought over when he got this job, essentially gets fired after this article comes out.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but you're going to have to convince me and sit me down and for hours to believe something otherwise than the fact that this guy was found out that he was feeding information to Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt.
Could not agree more.
And on top of it, this is the second time that this has happened with the Jets.
Yeah.
The first time with Zach Rosenblatt and Diana Rossini was the story about Zach Wilson being reluctant to go back in and start after the Tim Boyle experiment and how that didn't work out. And then immediately after all of that, Tim Boyle gets benched, then cut. And the story was, at least Boomer had kind of gathered information at that time and said basically it was Tim Boyle's agent, because Tim Boyle was talking to his agent saying, I heard Zach is reluctant to play. Then Tim Boyle's agent was like, goes to the Athletic people to put it out there, like you're going to bench my guy when this guy doesn't even want to go back in there? Then Tim Boyle cut right away. So the article's one thing, because you're like, I don't know how true it is, and they're dropping it now because no one's talking about anything around the Jets, and this is the perfect time to get people talking about it. But once you see twice now people get jettisoned from the organization immediately after these reports, and when Aaron Rodgers publicly has talked about snuffing out the leaks in the building, that to me confirms that place is a disaster.
Yeah, no question. And the fact that he got fired yesterday or mutually agreed to part ways absolutely tells me that he had to have had some part in this. To me, the article, as I said yesterday, is just beating a dead horse. I mean, it was a lot of the stuff that we knew, highlighted maybe a little bit more, maybe a couple of new wrinkles in there, but it was more of the same. It's a lot of what we thought. But I do think that this is part of trying to figure out where the leaks are coming from so that this stuff doesn't happen again. I'm sure if you run down many of these NFL teams, like, do you think that the Josh McDaniels-led Raiders wasn't dysfunctional?
Oh, sure.
Of course it was, but there's no exposés written on them for whatever reason. Do you think any team that fired their head coach, you think the Commanders were, and I think Ron Rivera is a good coach, but it didn't go well there. You think that was a cohesive group behind closed doors all season as they're losing game after game after game? I mean, this is what happens when teams don't play well. So none of it's a surprise to me. I thought it was a lot more of the same with a couple of wrinkles. But the big question would be, have the Jets rid themselves of the leak so that this stuff doesn't happen again? I know they said 30 sources inside and out. Well, we can all find sources outside. But if you got someone on the in like that, that's a win.
Oh, sure. I mean, and then, Rex Hogan, it's funny because CeeLo brought this up too, where when Rex Hogan was fired, and then you see some of the NFL people out there going, Rex Hogan, very well respected in the scouting community, all this stuff, which is basically, once again, confirming that Rex Hogan was a source to these guys because they're going out there and kissing his ass after he gets fired, whereas guys like us know exactly what's going on. And I mean, it's almost like the Jets wanted to behead him in the town square. I'm serious.
No, I understand. Make him an example. Yes.
Just like they did with Tim Boyle.
Yeah.
It's like, hell, you got to do this? And we're going to show Aaron Rodgers that we're snuffing out the leaks. We're going to tell him, look, you wanted these guys gone that were leaking stuff to the media, and we did it. Not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I still think the worst line in all of it is is that line about the assistant GM thing. Like, I'm Joe Douglas. I got to read that and just cringe that's how people think of me.
Yeah, and the line was that Joe Douglas is not the GM, Aaron Rodgers is the GM, and Joe Douglas is the assistant GM.
And, for a guy that brokered that deal, and has done in some places good in the draft, other places not so good in the draft, went out and got the players, whether or not they were who Aaron Rodgers wanted or not. I mean, they've assembled a good defense. There are parts of this team that you do like. To read that, that's a rough one. That is, especially if that's how NFL types think of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we said, and we joked about it, and now you've got all these other sources that are saying that's exactly the way it is. Like when we talk about Aaron Boone being controlled by Brian Cashman, I remember Aaron Boone would fight back on that. He hated that. There's been several times that even when we had him in here, he shot us a look when we brought that up, and he would fight against that. And I still believe that there's a lot of influence from the front office with the Yankee manager, but I mean, this is for us to say that Aaron Rodgers is running the team, and then with 30 sources going and basically confirming that and saying that Joe Douglas is an assistant GM, they're going down with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's what it is. It's just you're living and you're dying with a 40-year-old quarterback off a torn Achilles.
They are going to see this through. I mean, that is obviously clear right in front of us. It didn't work last year. He got hurt. They are going to try this once. And we'll see. Now, he gets hurt again, then it's over. I mean, at that point, I don't care if he says he wants to play till he's 45. If you can't stay on the field, you can't play. But they're gonna give this a go next year, and we will see how important the quarterback is. Now, they've got additions to make. They've got corrections to make. They got to fix parts of the offensive line. I think they got to fix the receiving corps to a certain degree, because we saw how some of those guys that were brought in didn't do a whole hell of a lot. What was it? Alan Lazard took a beat. Lazard that took a beating in that article as well. So we'll see what they are when it's put together. I think defensively you kind of know. But this is going to be, for good, bad, or indifferent, it's Aaron Rodgers' offense, it's Aaron Rodgers' team, and that's what 2024 is going to be defined by.
It's amazing that we all talked about how, and I was fully on board with this Aaron Rodgers thing happening and thought it was going to work. Nobody predicted an Achilles injury 4 plays in, but this will be better than the Favre thing. It has to be. Like, it's, that the Brett Favre tenure with him coming here, getting off to a good start, getting hurt, playing through the injury, and then sending a picture of his penis to a employee. Like, it's got to be better than that.
No, it doesn't.
And
they were 8-3, man.
Right. I mean, and looking back on that year, it was exponentially better than what happened last year to the Jets, and maybe this whole experiment will be worse than that Brett Favre thing.
It might be. I mean, it ain't off to a good start. Favre, like I said, 8-3, and the writers were writing about an extension for Mangini after they beat who I think the Titans were 10-0 when they beat them. And then no one, Favre doesn't tell anybody about this injury. I was around it. Next thing you know, they completely nosedive, and it ended poorly in Seattle. Mangini gets fired. Favre's gone, and it was like, what in the hell just happened in the span of 5 weeks? Like, that's how quick it happened. In this case, it was in the span of 4 plays. Let me ask you this, too, because you go back to last year or whenever all these rumors began, probably more like March, when it got heated and heavy with the rumors, and then the move happens, and we think about what it was going to be, and him going to the Garden, and he was lauded. This is unbelievable. You fast forward now 10, 11 months, and the feeling of just disgust, and you think about him in this team. I mean, you talk about flipping 180 degrees, and I guess my question would be, and it's a serious question, how much of it do you think is contributed to the fact that he goes on that stupid show every week and talks and talks and talks?
Now, a huge deal. Boomer said it a million times. Never seen an injured player talk as much as he did. And, forget about him talking about the team and saying the leak stuff, but then also the controversies and delving into all sorts of things that are hot-button issues. And that's what he wants to do, and that's fine. He's getting paid to do it. But for the Jets' sake, it's horrible. So it's the worst possible thing, because it just perpetuated this bad season. The avalanche just got out of control because there was never any quiet time. There was never any quiet time for the Jets, even when Aaron Rodgers wasn't playing. And going into next year, maybe there'll be some delusional Jet fans out there that'll be excited before they play a game. But how could you be? I mean, you have to see it. You've got to see him play. You've got to see him stay healthy. You got to see him throw 4 touchdowns in a game before you actually believe that this thing can work. Because there's no blind faith this time around.
No, I agree. Blind faith was fine last year, and I was all for it. Matter of fact, I picked the Jets to maybe not win, but to win the AFC and get to the Super Bowl. I really thought defensively they'd be great, and I thought he was going to play outstanding football. I never saw an injury coming. For a guy who didn't have much of an injury past and seemed to play through a lot, never, ever envisioned what happened to happen. And yes, you are right. Now it's a prove-it season. It's not, I mean, you can be excited for sure if you're a Jet fan. That's fine. You can have hope. But at the end of the day, I think most Jet fans are going to take a wait-and-see approach. You kind of have to.
Yeah, and this, I mean, one of the more obvious statements of all time I'm going to make, but it just hammers. There's no better example than this. Like, no matter who you draft, whether you're drafting the offensive rookie of the year in Garrett Wilson or the defensive rookie of the year in Sauce Gardner, or you've got Quinnen and Quincy Williams and this great story that they are, and whatever you've done as a general manager. I know Quinnen Williams was a McCagnon pick, but still, whatever you've done as a general manager does not mean a goddamn thing if you whiff on that quarterback.
Yeah.
And the Jets whiffed on the quarterback as bad as you could, and that, more than anything, is the reason they're in this situation.
It sets you back 5 years. Easy.
Sometimes more.
Sometimes more. And when you whiff over and over and over, you're talking decades, and that's where the Jets have been.
Yeah, and then they tried to do this quick fix, which blew up in their face as well. And this is why when you're Joe Douglas, you've got your legacy will be tied to that guy forever. That's it. You know, Rob Saleh wants to talk about, you know, quarterback play and what happens when your quarterback's injured to these other coaches and look at their records when they didn't have a good quarterback. He could try to spin it any way he wants. Joe Douglas is never going to be able to get away from that. Joe Douglas and Zach Wilson are tied at the hip forever.
Yeah, and will be, and rightly so, and should be.
Yep. All right, Boomer and Gio with Jerry and for Boomer on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. CeeLo joins us in just a couple of minutes. Top of the hour, new Billy Joel song that we're going to play. As that is the first time since the 90s we have heard a new Billy Joel song. And 8 a.m. O's the Mentalist comes in here and blows our minds.